The Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has launched several airstrikes targeting southern separatists in the province of Hadramaut. It comes hours after the Governor of Hadramaut announced an operation to reclaim military positions seized by the separatists' Southern Transitional Council last month. Charles Stratford reports.
Saudi-led coalition airstrikes target separatist fighter positions in southern Yemen. It came shortly after a military operation was announced by the Saudi-backed Governor of Hadramout province to retake positions seized by southern separatists.
This operation does not target any political or social component, does not target civilians, and does not affect the lives of citizens or their interests in any way. This operation is not a declaration of war, nor an attempt at escalation.
These are military vehicles with Yemen's National Shield Forces. They are Saudi-backed and operate under the authority of Yemen's internationally recognized government. They are on their way to confront men like these, fighters with the Southern Transitional Council, or STC, that has for years been heavily backed by the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have been allies in fighting Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen in the last decade. But factionalism in the groups they support, experts say, has contributed to a rift between them. The UAE said it will withdraw its remaining forces from Yemen after Saudi Arabia earlier this week supported a demand by the Yemeni Presidential Council that they leave. The STC, which has long sought an independent state in southern Yemen, said the decision had no legal basis and said the UAE would continue to be their main partner in the fight against the Houthis. The UAE's decision to pull out came after an airstrike by the Saudi-led coalition hit what it said was a shipment of weapons for the STC in the southern Yemeni port of El Makla. The UAE denied the claim and said it deeply regretted the Saudi comments. Saudi Arabia earlier said it was trying to contain what it described as escalatory steps by the STC, and it accused the UAE of pressuring the group to conduct operations which posed a threat to Saudi national security and the security of Yemen and the wider region. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Let's go to Yemen now, and journalist Yusuf Maori is live for us from Sana'a. This is a very serious escalation. Do you think that the forces will be able to rout the STC, or is this going to be a long, protracted fight?
It could go either way, depending on how much foreign involvement will take place. Now, the advantage that the Saudi-backed Yemeni government has is that Saudi Arabia is willing to go the route of launching military operations. Saudi Arabia has launched a couple of military operations against key strategic positions that were owned by the UAE-backed STC. Now, the UAE, they seem to be reluctant to actually get involved directly militarily. What I mean by that is we haven't seen the UAE actually launch airstrikes as they did with the Ansarullah Houthis in previous wars. So that's the advantage that the Yemeni government has in its pocket. Now, with that said, you have a number of military bases and a number of checkpoints, key strategic sites that are still under the control of the STC-backed units. This is the push that Saudi Arabia and the Yemeni government are making to recapture, to retake those strategic sites, to retake the strategic military base of Al-Ja'sh, which was attacked today by Saudi Arabia. The winner, the decider of who the winner and the loser is going to be, it's going to come down to brute military force. Whoever has the most power, whoever has the most strength, and whoever has the most military capability, that's who's going to win the conflict in the south. Now, whatever the outcome is in the south, whether it's the Yemeni government that's victorious or the UAE-backed STC, you still have to address the elephant in the room, which is the power here in the capital, Sana'a, which is under the Sana'a-backed Ansarullah Houthi government. They have the most power, they have the most weapons, they have the most sophisticated ballistic missile system. They're able to impose a blockade on the Red Sea. They're able to even enforce an aerial blockade, as we've seen. So they have something to say about what's happening. And what they've said previously in their statements by their leader and by some of the government officials here in Sana'a is that they're not going to accept a Saudi-backed Yemeni government, and they're not going to accept a UAE-backed STC to run the affairs of the country in the south, especially when you take into consideration the alliance, the UAE alliance in the south. That's something that the Ansar Allah Houthis simply do not want. They don't trust the UAE, they don't trust the Saudi government, and they don't trust the actors and the proxies on the ground, according to their spokesperson official.
But Yusuf, this means that there is a potential for a conflict to spill over into secession. One side, the STC, is fighting. They see an opportunity to create southern Yemen. All of this chaos is going to get to that stage at some point. Or do you think it's down to, like you say, just brute military force?
Well, looking at history, we know that the Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the US, and even Israel, they've declared war against the Ansar Allah Houthis, and they were unable to defeat them. So with that in mind, and we learned from recent history that this is a group that still hasn't lost a battle. They still haven't lost a war. They were able to target even the US Eisenhower, the aircraft carrier, a number of times. So I'm always keeping that in mind, because whatever the outcome is going to be in the south, whether it's pro-Saudi or whether it's pro-UAE, the bigger challenge, the bigger conflict is going to come once the Ansar Allah Houthis enter the battle. Because once they enter the battle, they're not just fighting for the north or the south. They're going to be fighting for complete control of the entirety of Yemen, north, south, east, and west, and for control over access in and out points of the Red Sea, the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That's something that the Ansar Allah Houthis are also fighting for. All parties seem to be fighting for access to the Red Sea, for control of access to the Red Sea. And this is only going to spell more conflict, civil war. But ultimately, there's always going to be a victor. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the Yemeni people in the near future.
Yusuf Maori joining us live there from Sana'a. Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.